Hi, everyone. I am well aware that the sponsor talk is not the bit that anyone came for today. I'm going to do what I can to make this as useful as possible. Can I ask that my notes appear down here, folks on the ape? Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm going to try and make this valuable. I founded Skillerwell because I felt very dissatisfied with learning for software teams. We developed a new approach. We initially focused on hard technical skills, and now we've branched out into what we call power skills for managers and leaders too. And I want to talk a little bit about that journey. I think it's an old quip that naming things is one of the two really hard problems in computer science. The reason we call them power skills is because the other name for them is soft skills, and I think that really massively underplays their importance. It makes them sound very fluffy, like you can't really work out whether they exist or not, and it doesn't really give you a sense of their value. Whereas I think power skills, it is an indicator of the leverage that you get from being good at those things. And they have been very important to me. I'm going to embrace some vulnerability and talk about some of my career failures for a moment. So I was in an early stage company that took months to move from being B2B, from being B2C. Tried very hard to convince the founder, but I couldn't do it. And eventually someone else was able to convince him in a way that I simply hadn't been able to. I worked with a head of product, tried to convince them very hard to prioritize some security-related concerns. I should have talked about reputational risk, clearly. I feel like that's a big learning for me here. And then the database was wiped by, I've put a hack, it was a script kiddie, someone just like hitting a load of IP addresses with the same thing. It was a nightmare, it was very annoying. At least they didn't access any data, but still. I was a fractional CTO at a company where I'd come back every single week, and I'd find that the same things I'd asked for simply hadn't been done again and again. I went through a journey of being terrible at running interviews to getting better and better over time. I like to think I'm good now, but I'm sure I've still got a way to go. I'm sure I caused a lot of unnecessary stress to the people I interviewed. I definitely missed out on some good hires as a result. There are a load of times I've given advice to other technical leaders. I've said, if you don't do this, this bad thing will happen. They've not done it. The bad thing has happened. There are a load of times other people, I've got one step ahead of myself. There are a load of times other people have given me advice, and they've said, if you don't do this, the bad thing will happen. And I didn't do it, and the bad thing happened. One of the benefits of writing a list like this for yourself is you very quickly realize that this list will never be complete. I still have a way to go. I am strongly convinced that we all have learning left, including me. So I wanted to get analytical about power skills, and I started out with a huge list of the different skills that I could see that I knew different roles would need. But it was kind of unmanageable because it was a huge list. I wanted to make it more structured, to link it to jobs. One of the complexities there is that different job titles often have the same responsibilities, and at the same time, companies using the same job titles give them different responsibilities. So I came up with this approach that was somewhere in between, looking at the different kinds of things that you do in different roles, and typical roles that have those sort of things. If you've read The Manager's Path, you will probably recognize that inspired this a lot, so shout out to that excellent book for this. But this felt like a really good start in working out what different roles would need. It's not very actionable yet, though, because it's not very granular, and I think granularity is very important if you want things to be actionable. So within each of those areas of responsibility, there are a load of activities involved, and I broke that down even more. I see people taking photos. You're welcome to. You can also, if you come to us, Dan, we'll give you a link to get access to a PDF, which is easier to get text out of if that's useful to you. One thing I find looking down this list is that almost every item in it is very high leverage. Like the difference between doing this thing poorly and doing it really well has a massive difference in outcome. So these should all be things that we care about. Granular breakdown has definitely moved us a step closer to being able to improve some of these skills. It still doesn't tell you what you need to learn. You still need to understand your skill gaps and which of those areas are strengths already. There are multiple ways to do this. You might think that sort of self-reflection is the only way to get there. If you're familiar with this meme, you'll know what's coming next. It's very hard to identify skill gaps in isolation. Self-awareness is itself a power skill, and it's a particularly hard one to learn. And so we need to get insight from the people around us, your reports, your peers, your manager, and then that should start giving you an overall picture of where those skill gaps might be. I think you can also think about downstream measures of those skills, like if you have a very high turnover of people in your team, that could be a result of poor skills around people management, or even just a need to improve around people management. If your delivery is not at the quality level that you want, that could mean a lack of technical leadership. I'm saying could there because there are definitely other factors. I don't really think the quantitative ever gives you the full picture. You need to have the qualitative understanding to interpret the data that you get, but that data can give you signals and kind of point you in the right direction. My own experience has been that the challenges I find as a leader have always been tech-specific. Like I've been to a lot of events for people working in the same industry as me, or people with the same kind of reporting structure as I have. And I found that those roles don't have the same kinds of problems, and it's often hard to relate to the experience of other people. So other people aren't doing the same, don't have big problems around estimating something so abstract as the work that tech teams are doing. They aren't creating these kind of interlinked systems that develop behaviors. They create artifacts. They make an actual thing that just exists, and that turns out to be quite a lot simpler than what tech teams have to deal with. I also think their individual contributors don't seem to have the same strength of opinion of most of the people that I've worked with in tech. Suffice it to say, I've figured out that I think tech organizations need different learning. And I was thinking about how you learn to lead and manage better, and I wanted this kind of theoretical basis for that. In my opinion, these power skills are not just about ability, they're about judgment as well. So to me, ability is like the skill to be able to do a thing, and judgment is the wisdom and the contextual understanding to be able to do the right thing in the right way at the right time. And as someone for whom learning is my passion, I feel like I know how to learn skills and wisdom, even if I haven't done it yet. And the answer is that you have to do them. To learn coding skills, you have to write code. It's not enough to read the docs. You learn the skill best by doing the thing. To learn power skills, you need to practice the power skill. It's not enough on its own to read the thing about the power skill. What strikes me as very different, though, is that with coding skills, we have a load of mechanisms in place to close the feedback loop. We have like design documents that get reviewed. We have pair programming. We have PR reviews. We have automated tests. We have QA. We have observability tools, all ways of getting more feedback as the code we write gets closer and closer to production. Lots of feedback loops for people to learn. With managers and leaders, we very often just kind of stick them into a team. We stick them into the production environment and sort of wish them luck and wait to see how they fail first. Hence the title of my talk, that I think friends don't let friends learn to lead and manage in production. We should try to create environments for people to learn those skills away from the production environment where they could cause key people to leave the company or ruin your metrics in some other way. So we wanted to have a way of finding skill gaps and fixing them outside of the regular flow of work. And Skillaware is the company that does exactly that. We created a methodology that no one else is doing, that we thought should exist in the world, because we had a load of frustrations with existing training. I think lots of approaches to training are very well optimized for people to follow their interests, but not so much for transformation or for impact. I think a lot of training follows a kind of undifferentiated factory model where people follow the same series of steps. We wanted to target the steps that people are going to follow to the need of the business they're in and personalize to each individual's current gaps and only work on those to avoid wasting their time. A lot of training I see feels very passive. To learn a skill, you really need to do the thing and ideally get feedback from someone who knows how to do the thing. So for us, all of our learning happens in live sessions with a coach where you are going to put into practice the ideas that you're learning and get immediate feedback. And again, a lot of existing training is based around self-access, and its main metric is around engagement. We instead will schedule sessions that appear in people's calendars, typically 60 to 90 minutes per fortnight, where people just do show up. And for us, the measure of impact is your engineering metrics or your revenue. It's the metric that you care about. I have run out of time, so please do come to our stand, which is out there. We will bring this idea to life for you. We built this company all around the idea of having that kind of impact, and in fact, as we have with Mary's team at Pleo around technical skills. So I do hope to have a chat with some of you outside. Thank you.